This is a game changer for the Montreal Canadiens as they've made a surprising call-up just a few games ahead of the Stanley Cup playoffs. We're also going to get into another player that continues to make history for the team. We're going to break it all down in this episode of Hattrick HQ. But before we do that, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 72% of you who watch these videos are not actually subscribed to the channel. So if you want to stay up to date with everything that's going on league-wide in the NHL and hockey in general or the Montreal Canadiens, be sure to hit that subscribe button. But a lot to get into today, KC. Montreal Canadiens have made some interesting moves, and we're going to get into that later in the video. It's actually pretty interesting for the Habs, and the fact that there's only a few games left before the playoffs, it actually could pay off huge for the team. We'll get to that later. But again, Lane Hutson, he's been having a great season, rookie season that is, and we got to start with him. And I'm going to throw it over to you right away. I mean, this guy is turning heads, continuing to turn heads, and it's almost expected at this point because of everything he's done so far this season. And he's an absolute game changer for this team heading into the playoffs, and a playoffs where it looks like the Montreal Canadiens are going to make them this year, right? They're on their way to making the playoffs, and some huge comeback wins, including last night against the Panthers. They've been playing some great hockey. What are you seeing from the Montreal Canadiens and obviously Lane Hutson all season?
Yeah, I mean, Lane Hutson is a game changer in itself. I mean, this guy is probably a top 5 defenseman in the league in his rookie season. The numbers don't lie, which we're going to get into in a bit. But the Montreal Canadiens, they went on a little bit of a slide. They lost 5 games in a row, and luckily other teams lost, so they stayed in the wild card contention. But beating the Florida Panthers 2 games in a row is huge momentum boost for this team right now. Beating one of the top teams, the team defending Stanley Cup champions, beating them 2 nights and really getting those points that you needed to secure yourself into this playoffs. Yes, there is still a lot of wiggle room in between these teams right now. They're only up, I believe, by 2 points on the Rangers and the Blue Jackets at this point, but they got a very much needed momentum boost by beating the defending Stanley Cup champions, and it's all on the back of Lane Hutson here, getting 3 assists last game. I mean, this guy was on absolute fire. He's such a great playmaker from the back end and doing things that as a defenseman that we've never seen before as a rookie.
No, quite literally not in the last 35 years. And we're going to get into that in a second, right? That we haven't seen from a rookie and specifically a defenseman either. But the way the Habs are playing right now, I mean, it looks to me like the race is between them and the New York Rangers at this point for the last playoff spot. And the Montreal Canadiens continue to win games in a fashion where I'm like, okay, this is a team that wants it. And the Rangers continue to shoot themselves in the foot every single time. So it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the race goes. But in terms of the rookie race and maybe the Calder, this guy is putting up incredible numbers. I mean, it's almost undeniable at this point that he is going to win the Calder Trophy. Again, there's a lot of speculation about who could win, and there's a lot of great rookies. This is a great rookie crop this year. That's something that's being overlooked because of this entire season. You know, like you had the Four Nations face-off, but something that's been overlooked is the rookies this year. And every defenseman with more assists than Lane Hutson this season, the list ends at Cale Makar. I mean, that is great company, and this guy is a rookie, and he looks like he's going to be an absolute stud in the NHL. And he's the first rookie defenseman in NHL history with 60 points in a season since 1991-92. Again, that's worded kind of weirdly. I thought, you know, at first it was, you know, NHL history, but it is in the last, 35 years-ish or so, last 34 years. So he's putting up some crazy numbers this season. And most of them, too, he doesn't score many goals. Most of them are assists. He sees the ice so well. He's a great skater. So he's been putting up some crazy numbers. We can dive into his stats here in a second as well. I mean, like I mentioned, 5 goals on the year, right? So not too much of a goal scorer, but 57 assists. He has 62 points on the season. And the other thing I think is really underrated with Lane Hutson, KC, that I wanted to touch on is, first of all, his age and what he's been able to do coming in as a rookie. Still only 21, but how much he plays. He's playing almost 22 minutes a night on a Montreal Canadiens team that looks like they're going to make the playoffs. And earlier this season, it was like, oh, this is going to be another year of pain for the Canadiens. I don't know how you feel about that, but he plays a lot.
Yeah, he's logging a lot of time, 5-on-5 and on the power play, which is creeping his numbers up. And I think it's crazy to see that as such a young guy, his first year in the league, getting more ice time than he ever was in his pre-pro career, he still has the legs at the end of the game to go out and make a play. This guy has really been able to adapt that way in regards of getting the amount of time on ice he's getting, because we've seen some rookies come in, get a lot of time on ice, and you see them by the end of the game, they're very slow, they're looking sluggish, but that's not the case for Lane Hutson. This guy looks fresh the entire game. I mean, he can go out in overtime, slip down the boards, and thread a pass through like it's nothing. It's just nothing to this guy. He's just a special talent. There's just something in this guy's brain that is clicking that a lot of people don't understand what it is. I mean, this guy is unreal. I mean, the fact that there's even a debate for the Calder right now is ridiculous. Give this guy the trophy. I know it's a good rookie class, but there's nobody doing the things that Lane Hutson is doing. I love me some Macklin Celebrini. I love me some Matvei Michkov. I love me some Dustin Wolf. But none of these players are matching up to what Lane Hutson is doing right now.
All the players on this list that you're seeing on screen right now are fantastic players, and they're going to be great NHLers. And I think that, it could be a race for the Calder between, Lane Hutson, Michkov, who's really turned it on as of late after John Tortorella was fired, and obviously Macklin Celebrini, right? I think those are the top three, and they've all had great seasons. But if you look at Lane Hutson, if you look at the other two, actually, more specifically, they're on teams that are not going to make the playoffs, and they've had decent seasons. But Lane Hutson has actively helped the Montreal Canadiens into a playoff spot and into a position where it looks like they're going to make the playoffs. That's what good players do. That's what great players do. He's going to be a great player. And I'm not a Habs fan by any stretch, and I'm saying that. So I think that it is a no contest for me that he's going to win the Calder. Nobody else is doing, like you said, things that he's doing. And speaking of which, through their first 76 games in the NHL, Lane Hutson has more points in his career right now than Cale Makar and Quinn Hughes. I mean, great those are probably the two best defensemen in the league right now, and he's doing things that, they didn't even do. So, at a younger age, of course, but we'll see how he progresses in his NHL career. But something else we have to get into, KC, that is very interesting with the Montreal Canadiens is Oliver Kapanen is on his way to Montreal. His season ended overseas, so he is coming over. That has been confirmed. The Canadiens have made that move. Could be a nice boost. And again, this is from Marco D'Amico. Energy to their bottom six. Worth noting, he is also still eligible to play for the Val Rocket in the playoffs as well if they go further than the Montreal Canadiens, because again, it's up in the air if the Canadiens will even make the playoffs. And even if they do, if Laval goes farther, he can, rejoin the team there. So this is an interesting pickup, if you want to call it, at this point of the year. What are you seeing from Oliver Kapanen and how he can help this team?
I mean, when I heard this news this morning, I literally let out an audible "let's go" at my workplace because I was so excited that he was coming back over for the playoff push for the Montreal Canadiens, because this is a guy who he had 12 games earlier this season with the Montreal Canadiens before going on loan to the SHL. And in those 12 games, I did really like what I saw from Oliver Kapanen, but then when he went to the SHL, he proved that he's still got it, and he does have it. He's only 21 years old, and he had 35 points in 36 games. That's almost a point per game over in the Swedish league, having 15 goals with 20 assists. This guy really turned it on and found a different level to his game in the SHL. And something that a lot of Habs fans did see during his time with Montreal is this guy was such a hard worker, man. Every shift you see this guy, he was so noticeable on the ice, whether it was at doing the forecheck. I thought he was so good at that in Montreal, and as well as, he's always trying to create plays for his teammates. And I think when he was with the Montreal Canadiens, I seen that in him. I seen that this guy has the potential to be a very solid bottom six guys for the Montreal Canadiens future. And now he goes over and hones his craft in Sweden and comes back with a fireworks season in the SHL. I think this guy is going to make a major impact for the Montreal Canadiens, and I wouldn't be surprised, Darius, if we see him here very soon in the lineup.
Yeah, I think he's going to make a big impact for the Montreal Canadiens down the stretch, because he got his confidence back up. You could see it, with him starting out the year in the NHL. I know very small sample size, but he went overseas, like we mentioned, to Sweden, and he had a great season. So now coming over and getting to play with a red hot Montreal Canadiens team that's doing crazy things. I mean, the comeback win against Florida, that's heart, right? That takes guts. So for him to join the team, I think it's a great thing. It's a great move. It makes them a little bit deeper, and he's feeling good about himself. The team's feeling good about themselves. So it's going to be interesting to see as they make a push towards the playoffs here, what the Canadiens can do, because there's only a handful of games left in the season and they're right there. They could still definitely make the playoffs, and they're playing some pretty good hockey. So we want to hear what you have to say in the comments about, first of all, Lane Hutson, the season that he's having. I think it's a no-brainer to me that he's going to win the Calder personally. I mean, he's having an unbelievable season and nobody else is doing what he's doing. And let us know what you think about Oliver Kapanen as well. It's an interesting after the deadline pickup for the Montreal Canadiens, or, you know, return, I guess, if you want to call it that. But it could be an interesting pickup for them late here in the season that could add some more depth to the team. But again, let us know what you think in the comments. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything going on around the league.